Welcome to the Tori and Wren YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making one of these diagonal zipper pouches. They have 100% quilting cotton up here at the top and faux suede here on the bottom. They feature this awesome diagonal zipper, and the diagonal actually repeats on the back. What's also cool about these bags is you can open up the zipper, and as you can see here, this center seam, you can actually have two colors in your lining to create this same diagonal effect inside if you'd like. So if you'd like to make this project, you can keep watching. I have the full instructions in this YouTube video, as well as how to make your own template for the bag. But if you'd like the full written instructions and the pre-made template, you can find them down below listed on my Etsy shop. So let's get started. So we're just going to move this out of the way. So if you'd like to make one of these zipper pouches, we're going to need a top half template and a bottom half template. And these correspond to the top and bottom of the pouch. Now this is a template available on my Etsy, but we're actually going to create it from scratch here in this video. So to make your template, you're going to need an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, a pencil, a ruler, and rotary cutter. Now if you don't want to use a rotary cutter because you don't want to dull your blade with the paper, you can use scissors, but make sure for every cut that I'm doing then, instead you're going to draw a line with your pencil and then use your scissors to cut it. So for our first cut, we're going to measure from one of the 8.5 sides. We're going to measure 1.5 inches in, and we're going to cut it. So that's 1.5 inches, and we're just going to cut that off. On that same side, we're just going to measure 2 inches down from the top. So from this corner, 2 inches down, and then we're going to measure 2 inches up from the bottom corner. So this one here, 2 inches up. We're going to take our rotary cutter and our ruler. We're going to go from that marking to the corner, this opposite corner on the same side. We're just going to cut it like that. Okay, and then we're going to repeat on this side. So from that marking to the corner. Okay, so just like that, we'll move these out of the way. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to split this in half. So we're going to fold it. So match those corners, and then you're just going to mark the center. And you're going to do the same right here, corner to corner. Mark that center. So it'll look like that. I'm then going to get my pencil and make a more visible marking of where that half is. Then I'm going to take my rotary cutter and my ruler again, and then I'm going to split it in half. Okay, so now that's separated. So here's my top half template and my bottom half template. So now we're just going to get our pieces that correspond. So this is the top half, so you're going to mark it. It'll have the shorter side on the right and the longer side on the left. And then we have our bottom half template. You're going to have the longer side on the left, or longer side on the right and the shorter side on the left. And this bottom edge here and this top edge here, just like this template here, are going to be cut on fold. Okay, so you can actually label these top and bottom so that you don't get confused, and you can also mark where you have to cut on fold so that you don't forget. So I'm going to take these all away. So before listing all of the pieces that you need to cut for this project, I just wanted to give you an example of how you would cut your templates out. So first you would press your fabric. Mine isn't, so that's why I have all these wrinkles everywhere, but you'd give your fabric a good press. You'd then fold it over like this, about the size of your template. So I have my bottom half template here. So I'm just going to adjust so that I don't waste fabric. So that seems about right. See, I'm not wasting anything. And what you're going to do is you're going to line this fold line, the cut and fold line, with the folded edge of your fabric. So you're going to align this like so. You're going to pin your fabric, and then you're going to cut this, this, and this. You're not going to cut that fold line, and that's so your piece opens up like this. So it'll be like this originally, and then you'll open it up and you'll have the full piece. Now in terms of cutting, starting with print A, you're going to need one piece cut from the top half template, and it'll look something like this when you cut it. Now I fussy cut my design so that this part of the design would be centered here on the side. So it would look something like this where the bunny is centered. I had something in my way when I was cutting, so I slightly cut it a little too close to the edge. So if you're going to be fussy cutting your design, you kind of want it a little bit more in because you're going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And in terms of the direction of the fabric, I don't mind using directional fabric, although the back may be upside down. But generally, if you don't want your design upside down in any way, I would refrain from using directional fabric. You can still fussy cut part of the design so that it's over here. But if you don't want it upside down in any way, I would avoid using it because this is on fold, so it will be upside down over here. Next, from print A, you'll need 2 pieces measuring the width of your zipper. So as you can see here, the width of my zipper, mine's about 1 1/8 inches, and then they're by 2 inches, so width of the zipper by 2 inches. Next, from print B, you'll need 1 piece cut using the bottom half template. So it would have looked like this when you were cutting it. And I'm using a faux suede material, but you can use 100% quilting cotton, vinyl, anything you'd like. Next, you're going to need 2 pieces of print C, one of the top half template and one of the bottom half template. Since these fabrics are actually not directional, you can actually just cut 2 of the same template as you can see here, and this can rotate no problem because there is no direction. From print C, you're also going to need 2 zipper tabs. They measure the width of the zipper by 2 inches. Next, you're going to need 2 pieces of fusible fleece. The fusible fleece I'm using is Pellon 986F. It's really lightweight, but you can use different fusible fleece if you'd like, something maybe heavier. And I just cut 1 piece from the top half template and 1 piece from the bottom half template. Next, you're going to need 1 8.5 inch zipper. This is a continuous zipper sold by the yard, and 1 zipper pull. I've already added mine here into the zipper. I can actually show you what they look like by the yard. So when I say continuous or by the yard, I'm talking about these zippers here where you can cut them to size and insert your zipper pull. Beginning with fusing, we're going to fuse the fabric A and fabric B pieces to our corresponding fusible fleece pieces. So you're going to fuse the wrong side or back of your fabric to the glue or bumpy side of the fusible fleece. So you're going to do that for both of these pieces here. The only difference is for the faux suede here, you're going to want to put some sort of protective layer or maybe a layer of old fabric on top before you apply your iron, because this is made of some plastic, so you don't want to apply direct heat to it because it will melt. So definitely add a layer or 2 of protective fabric while you're fusing. So I've just fused both of my pieces with the fusible fleece. Now, since the suede sometimes doesn't fully stick to the fusible fleece, I'm just going to sew a temporary stitch all the way around close to the edge to hold it in place. Now that I'm done sewing all the way around my faux suede, I'm going to move on to the zipper and zipper tabs. So I'm going to take my 2 print A and print C zipper tabs and I'm going to sew them to the ends of my zipper. So I'm going to align my print A ones on top with the right side of the fabric facing the right side of the zipper on both ends. And then I'm going to sew here using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and same thing on this side. Once that's done, I'm going to flip to this side. And I'm going to sew the print C ones to the back of the zipper. So the right side of the fabric facing the back of the zipper on both ends. And then I'm going to sew these also using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but I'm going to try to stay on that first seam that I sewed. So you'll see it here on this side. I'm going to try to sew right on top of it so that they align perfectly. So just a little correction, when you're sewing the print C tab with the right side facing the back of the zipper, you're actually going to want to sew on this side with the tab underneath, because this way you can see the seam. When you're sewing on this side, you're not going to be able to see it, so you might not be in line with it, so sew on this side. So once your tabs are sewn on both sides, you're going to open up both of them by bringing the wrong sides together like that. And then you're just going to press it on the iron and sew a top stitch on both ends close to the fold here. So now that the zipper tabs are sewn on, they should look something like this on both sides. What we're now going to do is mark the middle of our zipper. So we're going to fold our zipper in half like this by bringing the tabs together and aligning the seam here. We're going to press this flat with our hands to fold it in half. Then we're going to get an erasable marking pen and we're going to mark that fold because that is our center. Okay, and we're going to repeat the same on the other side. So align our tabs, fold in half, and mark. Okay, so I'm going to open mine up and make those markings more visible so you can see them on camera. So that's the center of my zipper. And we're going to do the same with our print A top half piece and one of our print C lining pieces. So we'll set that aside for now and start with the print A piece. So as you know, when we cut our piece, it was folded like this in our fabric. So what we want to do is we want to focus with this bottom 9.75 inch diagonal side, and we're going to find the middle. So we're going to fold it in half, just like we did with our zipper, bringing these corners together, and we're going to mark that middle. So it's right here. I'm going to open it and darken that marking. Set that one aside. I don't know if you can hear that, but my dog is dreaming right now, so if you hear that, please don't mind it. But now taking our print C piece, we're going to actually do something a little bit different. So instead of marking the center of this bottom edge here, we're instead going to mark the middle of the top edge. This is because when we're sewing it, this is actually going to be flipped so that we can have our right sides facing. So our print C facing our print A. So instead of marking down, or sorry, up here, because it's going to end up on the wrong side, we want to mark the top edge instead. So we're going to do the same. We're going to fold it in half, bringing corner to corner, like so. And then when we get to that point, we're just going to mark it with our marking pen. Starting with our print A piece, we're going to align the marking on the zipper with the markings on the fabric to make sure that our zipper is centered with our fabric. Something that I would like you to pay attention to is the direction your zipper closes to. So you don't want your zipper to close downward, because if you have a lot of stuff in your bag in this corner, it may put pressure on the zipper and cause it to slightly open, and you don't want anything to fall out. So you want your zipper to close upward on the diagonal. So as you can see here, when I pull on my zipper pull, it closes upward. So just like that. Then you're going to align these markings together. You're going to put your zipper on top with the right sides facing, so the right side of the zipper with the right side of the fabric. Make sure those markings are aligned, and you're going to sew a couple stitches to hold that in place to make sure that it's nice and centered. Once that's done, you're going to sew across the whole side using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and a zipper foot on your sewing machine. So I'm about to sew my zipper to my print A piece, but I just wanted to give a quick tip before you sew your zipper down, and that's to sew on the side of the fusible fleece. Since it's stabilized, it will prevent a lot of stretching, so it's better to sew on this side. So now that one side of our zipper is sewn, it should look something like this. I'm just going to close the zipper so you can see it better. We're then going to take our print C piece that we marked the center of, and we're going to align it on top. So just like this, we're going to align those center markings. Again, do a couple stitches, and then we're going to repeat the same process by sewing across here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So once the print C piece is sewn on as well, you're going to open this up by bringing the wrong side of the print A and wrong side of the print C pieces together, like so. And you're just going to take it to the iron and press it so that it's nice and neat here. Just refrain from putting too much heat on the zipper because it is plastic and it may melt. Starting with the print B accent piece, so the faux suede, we're going to start with marking the center of that piece. So we want this edge here to join with the zipper since it matches the diagonal. If you remember, we cut the piece like this for the bottom. So we're going to be marking the center of this edge here. So we're going to repeat the same process as before by bringing the corners together and then taking our marking pen and marking it right here at that point. And I already used my marking pen to do so, so mine's marked. I'm going to open it back up, align those markings, and then flip this on top. So you want those markings to align so it's nice and centered. And then like I said before, you're going to flip to the fusible fleece side, and then you're going to sew across here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that your print B piece is sewed to your zipper, it should look something like that when it's opened. But we're actually going to flip over to this side to sew the remaining print C lining piece to it. So I have that right here. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to align it with right sides facing, but you don't want to align it on an angle with the other print C piece. Instead, you want to align it with that print B piece since that's the side of the zipper we're sewing it to. So as you can see here, I have my right sides facing, but it actually aligns with the print B piece below, just like that. And since this is the side we're sewing our zipper to, we want to find the middle just like before. So you're going to match those corners just like this, and you're going to take your marking pen and mark that fold just like I have. I'm going to open it up, align those markings together to make sure it's nice and centered, and then you're just going to sew a couple stitches right here, and then you're going to flip over and sew everything together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then you're going to want to sew on top of the seam you already sewed. So when you attach the print B piece to the zipper, you're going to want to stay in line with that seam. So now that the lining is sewed, we're going to open everything up. So we're going to bring the wrong side of the print C with the wrong side of the print B piece, like so. And then we're just going to give it a good press. And remember, again, do not put direct heat on the suede. So now that it's pressed open, you're just going to sew a top stitch on both sides of the zipper. So now that your top stitch is sewn, it should look something like this, as you can see. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring the print A and print B pieces together with right sides facing. We're going to align these diagonal edges together, and we're going to sew across here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we're going to repeat the same thing on the print B side. We're going to bring them together with right sides facing, and we're going to align those diagonal edges together. It may be a bit awkward to sew since they're opposite angles, but you're just going to sew across here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once your seams are sewn, they should look something like this. I just pressed my seams open, but you don't have to. Pressing your seams open can make them a little bit more vulnerable, so if you'd like, you can just press them to one side instead. Now what we're going to do is, if you see in here, we have a print C side and a print A and B side. What we're going to do is we're going to take that seam and we're going to center it with our zipper tabs. So right here, we're going to center it. And if you'd like to use a marking pen and mark that center, you definitely can. I'm going to center it here. And then you're going to take the print C side and you're going to do the same with the print C zipper tab. You're going to center it in there. So just like that, and you'll have this rectangular piece once you do this. So it'll turn rectangular. And what you're going to do is once you've aligned these, you're just going to secure them in place. Our seam allowance on this side is going to be 1/2 inch. So if you'd like, you can actually already sew 1/2 inch just to secure that in place so that it's nice and centered. Okay, and you're going to repeat the same on this side. So now that everything is aligned and secured in place, we're going to sew the sides closed and leave our opening to turn inside out. So to do so, we're going to flip over to the lining side and we're going to pick one of the larger corners. So we have an option of here or an option of here. I'm going to choose this corner, and what you're going to do is you're going to separate the print C fabric from the exterior fabric. So you're going to fold that back so this is on its own, and we're going to leave our opening here. Now I'm going to sew it and then I'm going to explain it because it's a little bit easier when you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm back from the sewing machine. This is what it looks like. So what I did using a 1/2 inch seam allowance was start my opening on the corner and then end my opening all within this loose section. So I sewed it all in here without sewing on top of any of these layers. So this opening will be what we're going to use to turn our bag inside out later. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this downward so that the exterior is now loose and on its own. And I'm going to sew this completely closed using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, again going from this top edge all the way to here and not touching any of these layers. I'm going to get as close as possible, but I'm not going to sew on top of any of it. So I've just done that. As you can see here, it's sewn. Now what this does is when we close the rest of our sides, this leaves only the lining in only the opening in the lining and not in the exterior. Our exterior is nice and sewn closed. So to complete this, now what we're going to do is we're going to start at the seam where our opening ends, and we're just going to sew on top all the way to close that up. And then we're just going to sew across all of this, again using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So right down the whole side, catching all the layers, and then over here, catching all the layers down. So now that the sides are all closed, you're going to flip over to the lining and you're going to use your opening to turn the bag inside out. So as you're turning it inside out, you're going to end up with something like this at first. What you're going to want to do is get a knitting needle and you're going to find your opening. So mine's in here, and you're just going to push those corners out so that it comes out a nice rectangle. So you see you'll have those really nice corners. So we're just going to push them out. So now that the zipper pouch is turned inside out and pressed, you're going to open it up because the last thing we have to do here is to close this opening in the lining. So what you're going to do is you're going to tuck in all the raw edges so that this edge is seamless. and you cannot tell where the opening is. I like to take it to the iron and give it a good press while I'm doing this. So it'll look something like that after you've pressed it. And you can either sew it by hand or try to separate it from the outside like this. So you have our outside here and here, and sew it by machine close, totally up to you. But once that's done, your diagonal zipper pouch is complete. So it looks like this on the front and like this on the back. I really hope you enjoyed this sewing tutorial. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. If you're looking for more projects just like this one, you can check out my YouTube videos or my Etsy shop link below. See you next time.